Hello and welcome to Surrogate Church. Here I am. This week my guest has shown up and I am here in a much happier mood than I was last time because I love her and she is on my couch and you are going to get to meet her too and have a chance to take in some of her wisdom. So after last week's show, it was actually one of the shows where I was talking about, I actually asked the question, do you have a scream? My piece, and I did a lot of screaming on that show too, but I asked women, do you have a scream? And many women that I know who watched the show came up to me this week in a very private kind of way and let me know about their scream, and also let me know how difficult it is not only to keep the scream in, but to release the scream, because along with it comes a lot of fear, a lot of fear. Sometimes the fear is real, so it's not necessarily the case that you have to go to a public platform to release your scream. You can go into the woods and find a beautiful, loving tree and scream it out to that tree and cry your heart out and do what you need to do to release it, because it's valid if it's in you. And there will come a day when you will be able to share that scream, maybe in the form of whispered tones. And that's how I felt it went this week. Women would grab me and just say, this is what my scream is. It's still a scream, even if it's whispered. It's the thing that moves you, that hurts you, that marks your soul in a way that just is unjust. I also came to, after the last show, this sense of my manuscript, The Surrogate Church, being part of the Old Testament, holding my testimony from a period 14 years ago that was very sacred for me. But there's also this time that we're entering, which is the New Testament time. So today I'll be reading an old piece, but I'm also going to be reading a more current piece, because I do believe we are shifting into the space, into the platform of Surrogate Church being a platform for women to come together, connect, share their ideas, share their scream in any tone that it comes out in, because we're the ones who are going to save the world. I just know it. So I'm starting with a piece called The Hidden Word from Surrogate Church. So many books of faith have been written. So many books of faith have been lost, buried, burned by the hands of the fearful. The gospel taken hostage, tortured, dissected, molested, forcing believers to live by the letter rather than the flesh of the word. There is a gospel, an ancient book of truth, stored in the right side of our brains. The time has come to make the journey over to the other side and find the treasure of the hidden word. So wherever your word is hiding, don't be afraid to look for it. And by journeying into the right side of the brain, the clue there is, if you don't know what your hidden word is, get creative. It will reveal the truth to you. So from the New Testament, I am bringing a new piece. I'm going to put my beautiful Old Testament aside. And this piece is called Mark Making. Mark making. Spring semester NYU research class. In walks Dean Mary Brabeck, a guest speaker. A list of accomplishments, too many to remember. A dean, a podium, a polished, a poised, a prepared, point of power. A philosophical look, a study, a life, a chapter written with her daughter, Kalina. First word spoken. My heart opens. She is a mother who brings her daughter to work. I like this woman. She is familiar. How do I know her? The soccer field, the grocery line, the spring fundraiser, mundane markings, academic majesty. She looks deep into the grown-up eyes of her daughter, raised to be a woman strong enough, loving enough to reflect back truth as she sees it. Feedback from the daughters of the mothers, born into a movement meant to mark the beginning of equality. I recognize her smile when she says, "My daughter is way smarter than me." Proud Mary rolling on the river over the rapids, carried by the force of our human potential. I honor that accomplishment. Grandmother speaks. I want to listen. She leaves her mark on my heart. Mark making. A new art program at our school, a new adventure with my husband and my sister, 20 years in the making, a new vision for the classroom, a model that integrates the arts and the sciences, the academic curriculum held together in a frame of social emotional learning, intended to empower the spirit of our young learners through a multi-sensory creative arts approach to problem solving. I become the principal. My partners insist. I assume the role. I am reluctant, but I shrug off the doubts and carry on with the hopes of bringing the grace of humility to the role. One of our students, a 7-year-old boy, marked by bullies in his last school, overwhelmed by an array of neurological challenges, marches up to me as I eat lunch with his class and says, "You are the worst principal in the world." I step back. I ask him to continue. I am secretly delighted to hear his feedback. He says, "Number one, you make too many jokes, and the only time you get mad is when someone is being disrespectful or unsafe." True. I agree. Number two, you love the kids too much, and you think making mistakes is a good thing. Also true. And number three, nobody is scared of you. So I think you should make your husband Dr. Lee, the principal. I wrap him in my arms and thank him for the best feedback ever. The girls at lunch, his 7-year-old classmates, overhear his rant and stand up and shout, "No way! Even though she's nice, everybody still listens to her." And so the discourse begins. I am showing up in all my power, the mother principal at work in our school, making a mark on the minds of our young learners. Georgie, our artist from New York City, makes her way out to suburbia. She is called to work with children with special needs. She sees their vulnerability and reflects back the beauty of their mark. She is the daughter of the father of drama therapy, the discipline that raised me to tolerate the paradoxical beauty of being human. She has her mother's eyes, her father's heart. She has yet to realize the inherent healing potential of her very being. We talk about creating an art program where the children come to know the power they hold in their hands to make the world a more beautiful place. Our school, located in an industrial lot, concrete and rubber tires, sheet metal and printing pressing against a backdrop of overshadowed trees, needs beauty. We start small, make it personal, sketch and sketch and sketch, observation, documentation, reflection. A mark on the page, a personal symbol, a story begins to unfold. The young guide steps in, 22 years old. How does she know the language of the loving eye? She sits with the children, talks about their work, reflects back the beauty of their art, helps them make conscious choices about the kinds of marks they want to call their own, symbol of their name. She looks carefully, points out a color, a shape, a symbol, and says, "This is really beautiful." And we all know she means it. Their marks suddenly matter. My daughter, Lily, a freshman at Boston College, finishes a production of the Vagina Monologues, a fundraiser for girls susceptible to online seduction. She is reluctant at first. She shrugs off the doubts. She carries on. She tells the story. She is part of something good. After the show, the audience is invited into the Black Box Theater, a talk back, where questions are raised above the markings of religious rhetoric. I ask the young performers, did you find it healing to be part of an all-women's ensemble? They respond with an enthusiastic yes. They tell me about a ritual at the start of each rehearsal where they stand together in a circle, shoulder to shoulder. In the center, someone says something good about her day. Share joy, the chorus shouts, "That's orgasmic!" In the center, someone says something bad about her day. The chorus, shoulder to shoulder, shoulders the burden and shouts, "That's fucked up!" The power of the circle in the square. I am so proud of our daughters, mine, Robert's, Mary's. They are doing it, showing up in a world where women are still made to doubt their inner source of wisdom. We need to stand together, women and men, fathers and daughters, mothers and sons, and make our mark, the symbol of our name. In a world, in America, in Virginia, women, regardless of circumstance, are being forced to submit to an intravaginal sonogram if they need an abortion. Government marking the choice, ignoring the voice that screams, "Enough! A woman's right to choose." Legally raped by plastic and cold gel, forced to look, not permitted to close her eyes, as the monitor pounds her with the deliberate, inconceivable beating from a heart too young to know better. Rhythmically, systematically, marking her womb and forever changing her mind. That's fucked up. 20 years ago marked the start of my making as a drama therapist. Today, I know who I am, who I want to be, who I am not and who stands in my way. I know enough to be called a master, to practice with the intention to do no harm, to fight for what ought to be, rather than what is. I have looked deeply into the roles I embody as a woman, observing, documenting, writing from the voice that would otherwise go unspoken, black, unlined journals, holding the stories that make my life matter, data from the depths. I am a feminist researcher. I did not know that until Dean Mary answered my question. Yes, she said, your observations are valid. We need to know more about the healing power of love. A research course at NYU, the course my life has taken, a course in miracles, a shift in perception, a chance encounter with a woman of power, strong enough, loving enough to inspire me in one brief moment to go forth and speak the truth that holds the potential to leave a mark on humanity that carries the symbol of love and wisdom. At 50 years old, that's orgasmic. And so it goes. So the beauty of that day is not the piece that I wrote inspired by Dean Mary Brabeck, but I was brave enough to send it to her, and I had reluctance. But what she wrote back to me changed my life. And I share it with you today because sometimes it's not what we create, but when we're brave enough to share what we create, who we are, in our vulnerability, sometimes we receive feedback that can change everything. Even the feedback I received from the 7-year-old about who I am as a principal was awesome feedback. Told me I was on the right track. But this is what Mary wrote back to me after I sent her a copy of the poem. Dear Marianne, thank you for sharing this poem with me. I have never been in a poem before, though I have written a few. And to be in this poem about touching the lives of others through thoughts, ideas, work, and most of all, love, is a great and humbling gift. And the title, Mark Making, you cannot know how meaningful that this is to me. There are many beautiful, moving, tear-provoking, smile-coaxing lines, but these: she sees their vulnerability and reflects back the beauty of their mark. How could you know? Let me tell you a story. A number of Christmases ago, I received a note from a dear friend, Dr. McKiernan, now deceased, founder of the Irish American Cultural Institute, whose wife of 50 years had been lost to Alzheimer's disease. As he thought about her, Doc, as we called him, wrote about a spirituality in Ireland that has diminished, disappeared, or been transformed, altered, perhaps by failures in charity. This spiritual attitude was summed up in a phrase his County Clare born mother taught him: God bless the mark. A text which is profoundly charitable in itself. The theology of this statement personally challenged everyone by the presence of a God-given blemish, an imperfection, a failing, a lame child, a blind woman, a student unable to read lines of a text, an adolescent paralyzed with self-doubt or depression. Such behavior called forth not malice, irritation, or condescension, but the supremely charitable exclamation, "God bless the mark." This, Doc said, was the spiritual aspect of the old Irish folk insight. It is in the shadow of one another that we live. It is in the shadow of one another that we live. This spiritual statement draws attention to our enormous interdependence, a profoundly feminist insight, and a Catholic one. And also to the extent that we can acknowledge, know, and accept the mark in ourself, to that extent, we will be able to bridge the chasm of human separation and will be able to reach another human being who also shares the mark. As we build a bridge to another's suffering, from the mark in ourselves and the mark in others to a better future, we build a community. And that is what your poem is about. The exquisitely individual human connections, the one that one by one create the web of connections that cradle us all in community. God bless the mark, and God bless you for your poem, your work, and you. Anyone who works with me knows that that is at the foundation of my practice. I run a radical practice. It shouldn't be considered radical, but it's radical because I love my clients. I love whoever sits on my couch, and I have such reverence for their bravery in showing up day to day with what they have to show up for. I welcome their mark, and I know that their mark is a symbol of transcendence, not only for them, but for me as well. It's why my practice is small, and it's why I consider anyone who is in my practice part of the most valuable people I know. So today I'm doing something radical, and one of my clients is on the couch. Now this sort of breaks the rules of therapeutic practice, but we're going for it. I can't wait for you to meet her. She is an artist, an art teacher, a mother, a Wonder Woman, and so we will take it to the couch where you will get to meet my dear Soraya. So here we are on the couch with Soraya, who's brave enough to come. Thank you, my Soraya.
Yes, my pleasure.
You are my first of clients, but maybe
Wow.
you're opening the door.
Cool. I hope I do.
For others.
I hope I do.
One of the great things I have come to appreciate, like fine wine from you, Soraya, is your beautiful, passionate, poetic cursing. I love the way you curse. It's the best. And it has taken me so long to start cursing. And then
Have I inspired that in you?
So
My mother will be
inspired.
so not proud.
No, but then I came across an article that actually says that people of very high intelligence are the best cursors. And they do a lot of it.
High five.
You got it. I'm a dummy. I'm an ignorant
Well, you-
fool
no.
who cannot curse. But I'm learning from you.
No,
and
an
I love it.
emphatic Bach is just so cathartic.
Oh my God, it is the best.
Yes,
It's the
agreed.
best. So Soraya, this is interesting because when Soraya and I were talking about her coming on the show, she reminded me of the first time that we met, the first time she came to my office, and it's actually 14 years ago,
Yes.
right? So you tell it. How did that come about?
I'll never ever forget the first time that I met you. I came to you I was having postpartum depression, and my son was 3 months old in his little car carrier. Yes. And I remember the office that you were in at the time, and me and my husband at the time, and the baby, we sat down on the couch, and opposite you were sitting, and you were visibly pregnant. Yeah. And so, of course, the first thing I said or near was, "Congratulations." And I was shocked. I'd never met a surrogate before, and you said, "Thank you, but I have to tell you that, I'm carrying for my sister."
Like personal reveal within the first few seconds of meeting. Like that was such an awkward part of that year. And there were very few new people that I took on.
Oh.
So you were really one of those people that I guess, do I explain? Don't I explain? Tell the truth, right?
Always, yeah.
If you are sharing with me, I've got to be authentic with you. And there it was.
And it was just instant. For me, it was, coming in as a mother in need, it was an instant, this is a wonderful woman that I can trust in, and it's been, an amazing thing to know that you shared and did for your family.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a beautiful gift.
Well, and you also speak to something that so many new mothers struggle with, which is the postpartum depression and now even anxiety. Mm-hmm. We're starting to categorize like extreme anxiety after birth.
Oh, really?
Yes, even just not only generalized anxiety, but OCD symptoms in the anxiety. And so just to know that within that expectation you're going to have your baby and everything's going to be wonderful, and to hit that, this is not what I thought it was going to be, is such a difficult and scary time.
It leveled me.
Right.
It really leveled me. And it was, as you know, it was my second child. And I guess that I had been suffering from postpartum depression the first time around. Mm-hmm. But I had, my best friend was dying at the time, Irene. And so, and we knew that she was going to be passing. So the combination of that happening and having a prior history of anxiety and depression, I was never diagnosed with postpartum depression the first time around. So then after my second child was born, it got drastically worse. And I had never known that if you have postpartum the first time, you're much more prone the second time.
Exactly.
And I didn't know until it was kind of too late. It had already slammed me.
Right. And, we talk about the afterbirth blues, and it's just a phase mothers go through, and you sort of ride it out. But it is way more than afterbirth blues, and really hard to navigate alone. So, if anybody is suffering with that or know someone, a young mother who is, the quicker you get help and support, the more manageable it becomes. Even just naming it is helpful.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So that was the mark, right? Today we're talking about marks
Yes.
that mark our soul and marks that mark the page. That was the mark that connected us. God bless that mark.
I know, and I've been seeing you as your client for 15, 14 years now.
Yes.
And it's been a really amazing journey with lots and lots of mark making.
Yes. So you are also an artist.
Yes.
Right? And tell us about how your art is kind of manifesting for you now and what you've been working with.
Well, most recently, and I'd say over the past many years, I've been working primarily in my sketchbooks and my journals.
Oh, the journal. And what propelled you to start working in that way?
Well, I did used to dabble. I would keep, in the past I had one sketchbook for my paintings and drawings and another journal for writing. And never did they cross. I don't know why. And then it was the year that I had been diagnosed with postpartum depression that I found a book, which I did find.
Did you find it?
I did find it. So this was purchased 14 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
Writing to Save Your Life.
Oh.
Michelle Weldon, and how to honor your story through journaling. And I don't even know if at the time I read it cover to cover, but I did read enough of it to revisit my sketchbooks and my writing, and it snowballed for me.
And now you integrate both writing and art in the same book.
I do.
I love that. It's like, why? Right. Let's put it together. Let's have everything happening there.
Yeah, that didn't happen right away. That only happened in the last, I'd say, 5 years. A very close friend of mine does that in her sketchbooks. She has her drawings and her writings together, and I was talking about how, because I wanted my stuff to be so highly organized, and the writing is here, and my list of ideas are there, and my drawings are in this book, and it was actually blocking my flow of creativity. And so
I love that. So this way you have one book, it's with you, whatever you want to express, you're able to express it.
yes, and as a result, my sketchbooks started shrinking.
Really?
Yes, that way I could, they're more portable.
Oh, show us.
So they went I used to have this traditional.
This is my
traditional
big black
sketchbook.
Oh my God,
Okay.
I write everything in big black sketchbooks.
Do you?
Here's my pile of journals, since we're talking
And
about
I do
it. But
require these for my students of all ages, like kindergarten through 12th grade. Everybody has a sketchbook. But so my personal ones have shrunk, because that way they are very portable, and my pocket, my purse, if I'm on the subway, if I'm on wherever, I can break them out more easily.
What usually inspires you to break them out? So now initially the inspiration was, I need something to save my life. I need writing to save my life. Right? To put out thoughts, right? Is that where it was? That was the saving?
It was, at one point I came to the realization that the tools I have in my toolbox to help me cope with my anxiety, my depression, my go-to tools were to visit my therapist or to take medication that I may have been taking. And it got to the point where I had so much angst going on in my head that talking and writing was not necessarily enough, and I needed to do more. I needed to make art as a form of catharsis, I guess, if that's the right word.
Absolutely, it is. It's like not just the expression to get it out, but it's what it's reminding me of. Last night, my daughter Mary came home from a 3-week expedition in Australia. She got this scholarship.
Wow.
So, of course, a group of 15 kids in Australia are going to get very close. So she's traveling for 24 hours, and she's sitting at the table and she's just crying about, I'm never going to see these people again. They're all over the world, all over the country. And she said, all I'm thinking is tomorrow I have to just get my sketchbook, and she's also an artist, and just write or draw everything that I can remember from there. This way it will save it for me. And when you just brought that book out and said, Save Your Life, I thought, oh, they actually also save pieces of our life so we don't have to hold them in memory so tight. Like, just save this one for me. And that was what, that was her remedy for dealing with the pain of the loss that she's experiencing. And I have to say goodbye because something happens to her. I watch her when she does it. She gets very quiet and it's meditative. I think it's like the same, whatever brain waves go on in meditation happen.
I wouldn't be surprised if they're
right.
I wouldn't be surprised if they're not exactly the same. If you put on little notes and
there's something there.
And she's in a flow.
The flow.
Yes.
The flow.
Yeah.
That's what it does. It gets
definitely.
you into the creative flow.
Definitely. It's similar to, if you have 100 things to do tomorrow and you just jot them down on a Post-it or you write them down before you go to bed, then they're out of your head and it allows you to find peace. So it's definitely been, my journaling has been the most, probably one of the most effective tools in my toolbox to help me cope with the roller coaster of my life. And are works of art in and of themselves, can you start to see them like that? I can. I definitely have been feeling or putting pressure on myself to produce more traditional works of art, larger paintings, larger sculptures. But the nature of life and being so busy, I just have not had the opportunity to carve out that time for myself. And as time has passed, I've realized that the documentation of my life in this form is just as valid, and it's not. At this point, I'm not making art for a gallery or for show. I'm making it for myself, and so if for now it lives in this place, then that's fine.
That's where it lives.
That's where it lives for now.
And that's where it lives. For sure. I think that there's some, I don't know, I go back and forth with this because I know many people keep journals, and sometimes they keep the journal just to record the daily, to unload all the daily things that they may have built up in. And I think at certain times that holding all that kind of heaviness, like you need to go through a purge of which journals am I ready to release. And I just have this vision of getting to that place where you feel like, okay, this journal from when I was 11, I don't need to save this anymore as documentation of who I was. I know that's who I was. And now can I release it in this ritual, burn it, shred it, light candles around it, give it to the moon, and then set it free and make room for what's going to come next. But I also have this vision of your different sized journals, like that in itself just being an exhibit, maybe not even going into them or just open to one page, because it is intriguing to me. Like, because we get in trouble for reading other people's journals. Not allowed to, that's my journal. And in my writing groups, women who will write in their journals, one of their big fear has always been that, what if I die and someone reads my journal?
Oh, wow.
Like, okay, so maybe you should release that. Maybe that's something you want to write and then release that piece of writing.
Right.
Or is it okay, to look
it's
in
a
it?
very interesting, the public versus private
Expression.
Which you brought up in the beginning of this show.
Right.
The mark making.
Yes, where is your expression?
Right.
Because the most important part is the expression. And then the second most important part is connecting with someone else with the expression.
Right.
So it could be one person, it could be a group, it could be an unknown audience if you're in a bigger kind of exhibition, right? You're exhibiting who you are. So who are you ready to connect with it? And that's part of what I learned from Dean Mary in her response to me, which is, we are all interconnected. Like, so if your mark is moving me, then it's connecting to a mark in me. And so there's where these bridges are built. And very interesting.
Yeah, it's a big step for an artist and anyone to move from that private to public domain, because obviously you are becoming so vulnerable and exposed, but in doing so we obviously will connect.
So the other thing is, you moved in your professional career from a very private domain, a very private school where you were an art teacher for many years, into the New York City public schools as a art teacher. So I always say Soraya went from Southampton to the South Bronx, which she literally did. Is that not a book? Southampton to South Bronx, the journey of an art teacher. What did you see that's the same? What's different? What has that experience taught you? What a range.
That was a complete black and white polar shift. And I did actually experience a bit of culture shock.
Yes.
I literally cried every day for 3 months. I was just so
going into South Bronx.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I really did.
Just the geographic landscape is very different from riding out East Long Island into the South Bronx.
Yeah, all of it was was extremely different. What was the same are, the hearts and wants and needs of the children.
Yeah, so pure.
So the children were essentially the same, except the environments in which they lived are so different. And I think what shocked me the most was the amount of poverty that exists so close to
home.
So close to home.
Right.
Just on the other side of a bridge. I don't know if it's 20 or 30 miles away from where I live, which is nothing.
Yes.
The conditions are so harsh, and it was heartbreaking.
Did you feel like art was a means of saving lives there?
Unfortunately, no. I think of, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I kind of think of art as a little bit higher up on that pyramid, and that so many of the children in that area didn't have their basic needs met. So this was less, it was harder for them to access it. But when they did, of course, their expression was so powerful.
Oof.
It was very, very powerful.
So in a way, it was like giving them a tool.
Yes.
Whether they were going to access it now or somewhere else in their life, that this is a tool that you can express yourself. When you might not be able to change your circumstance, but can you find a way to express what it's like living in that circumstance? And it is similar to mental illness, right? Like you're in a circumstance of it, which is what it is. Mm-hmm. Is there a way to find expression, to find creativity, to find the hidden word within that realm? I have a neighbor, and she, at I guess it must have been 21, she had a breakdown, and she was diagnosed with bipolar, came through it, really worked with great psychiatrists and therapists, and is a very, very talented young woman. Now, 10 years later, she's been diagnosed with lymphoma.
Oh, God.
Such, right? But she said something that was so heartbreaking to me. She said, when I was diagnosed with bipolar, everybody ran away from me. They were like, oh, like, what is that? As if it was something really scary, as if I was going to do something to them, as if I would never be the same. She goes, being diagnosed with cancer, everyone runs towards me, wants to take care of me, is so supportive, pouring out, what can I do for you? And she said, if I can put out a message, it is health is health, whether it is mental health, physical health, spiritual health. When our health is somehow compromised, why is there such judgment when it comes to mental health? And that's why I say it's radical that you are sitting on this couch with me. We're radical! Soraya!
I know.
That it is radical that we are sitting on this couch together.
The client therapist.
Right, like the wall that's supposed to be between us.
Right.
Where it is the stigma, the judgment, the shaming that goes on around that division. And it's the same between how kids in the South Bronx are judged versus how the kids in the Hamptons may be judged. There is just this division versus every human being has a mark in some
It's a stigma.
There's a stigma attached. There is absolutely the stigma attached.
Completely. And part of the reason why I'm happy to be here is because I'm not shy to say that I've been in therapy with you for 15 years, 14 years. It's been wonderful and completely healing. And at the end of the day, I think for me, I realized that being open and vocal about my depression, my anxiety, my postpartum, that it has absolutely been integral in my healing process.
It sheds a light, right, on these darker areas, and it gives people a chance to say, oh, I know that place. I've got that too, or I had this. So let's play a little game with our journals.
Okay.
So we've got these journals. Let me see yours. You can, and maybe it's just, let's point to a journal. I'm going to pick one of yours.
Okay. Oh, and randomly? Oh,
randomly. Exactly. That's my thinking. I'll pick. I am very drawn to this one.
Okay.
So I think I'm going to go with this, and you can share any piece you want from this with us.
Or you can just pick a random page, and I can talk about that page.
Oh, perfect. I'm going to go with where this is. Oh, no, I'm going to go with this guy. Copper.
So this is...
Let's see, Bobby, which camera should we hold this to get the best view? Copperish.
I would say, yeah,
Right there? Go ahead.
So this was a... I guess I brought watercolor with me. This was a... This is a drawing that I did at the Metropolitan Museum of Art when I took my students many years ago. I think this was 2015. And, this may have been an exhibit on Sumer and Assyrian art.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, because on this page we have a Sumerian headdress.
Oh my gosh! So are these watercolors?
These are watercolors on top of black ink.
And what do you have written here?
This is a great quote that is totally unrelated.
Okay.
It's totally unrelated, but there was room on that page, and I mixed my writing and drawing. And it's a quote by Lena Dunham.
Oh, love her. Talk about girl power.
Yeah.
Go, Lena.
I don't know where it's from, but the quote is, "The end never comes when you think it will. It's always 10 steps past your worst moment, then a weird turn to the left." I know.
I can relate. Definitely,
Exactly.
That was the end of my marriage. That
Yeah.
is totally how that went.
I know.
And definitely the weird
probably
turn
the
to
way
left.
mine ended as well, among other endings. It just, things don't.
It doesn't play out the way you think it is.
Right.
Wow.
So to get back to something you had said earlier about keeping the old journals and what do you do with them, and do you burn them, turn them into art?
Right.
It's something that I've been so undecided about, therefore I'm still holding on to them because of course I've got 10 different ideas. But one thing that I have realized that has been helpful to me in getting over my divorce or changing jobs is I'm able to go back and read what was I thinking at that time, and it helps me to remember why I made the choices I made, whether they were good ones or bad ones. And so it's not only cathartic at the moment, but they're very
they're keepers. They keep our process. When you write from that place to save your life, right? If you're really writing from a moment that I call it's sort of my pathway to peace, the writing, where I'm writing and writing until I arrive somewhere else, then it holds a process. I usually don't know where I'm going in my writing. Again, it's like 10 steps ahead and to the left where it may end a piece that I didn't even know it was going there.
Right.
And it then does mark this moment. And it does help me then to just be more present in my life because it's taken care of. I don't have to keep thinking that, I have to remember that. Like that sense of it's the looking back and it's what you have right there. Yeah?
Yeah, that's been helpful. In addition to, it gives me, it's a great place of inspiration for future works.
I want to see the little teeny blue one. No,
This
we may
one
be
here?
close
Yeah,
to the
sure.
end of time, but I just think this is too cute. Did you make this?
Yep. This is a little accordion book.
Oh my gosh, show it to the camera right there so we can see.
So my journals went from, they just keep getting smaller and smaller, and the last trip I took to Paris with my daughter, I didn't want to carry too many things, so I just brought some of these accordion pieces of paper that I painted, and then I draw on top of them. And this is a drawing of my daughter sleeping.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that, like, to me, redefines a book. There it is. It can be that small. And there's the moment. I love the accordion books. Do you have others like
I
that?
do. I have tons of them.
I love them.
I have tons of them. And the accordion books have not yet incorporated drawing and writing for myself, but my students have.
Have they?
My students in the South Bronx actually, this wonderful story called, I think it was called Walking to Water, that they were reading in their 5th grade, and the journey that these young children in Africa, they'd spend their whole day walking to and from just to carry water back to their village, and so they picked excerpts from that story and then illustrated it.
Oh.
And they were beautiful.
Wow.
They were great.
That is wonderful. Okay,
So,
one last,
yes.
the black book.
The black book.
So let's look at your black book. Classic. This is my classic black book.
I know.
My duct
There's
tape.
probably more writing in there than drawing. But
All right, I'm going to just flip and see if I find some.
yeah.
Here we go. This page.
This was
Hold that up.
this was a beautiful. So this again, like the earlier drawing, was a sketch while I was at a museum, and that was this year's Whitney Biennial, and there was a giant wall of stained glass that the artist, this is his name, Roald Nieves.
Yes.
He made the entire stained glass wall with, the colored cellophane that you
Oh my
would wrap a
gosh.
basket with.
Yes.
And like black electrical tape.
No.
Yes. It was spectacular.
Oh my
Very,
gosh.
very, very, very giant. And this was just a tiny little detail that I was sitting on the floor and I drew the detail of love and the
with
doves.
the doves.
Yeah.
And any words?
The only words I have here is a quote from another artist whose work was in that room. Oh no, her work was in another room, Eliza Nissenbaum. And I wrote a quote from her. She says, "I'm interested in the politics of visibility."
Ah! Is that what we are talking about today?
Yeah. Her work, there are
Wow.
these beautiful paintings of immigrants shown in a different light.
Oh. I am interested in the politics of visibility.
And the visibility of people. And when we see people, who are they really? What do we think they are versus who they really are?
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. I think that is beautiful. But we're not ending there, even though it's such a perfect note to end on. I would love to end on that visibility.
Well,
I just feel like I want to do another.
Okay, yes,
pick.
please.
So I'm going to go to Little Purple,
tiny Little Purple.
which is my favorite. And this is graph paper.
This is graph paper, which I've started to pick up when I'm in Europe.
Oh my God.
All of their, not all of them, the majority of this little notebooks you find there are graph paper rather than lined.
I love it. Oh my God, she's
Oh,
so
wait.
beautiful. Yes, go ahead. This is it. She's gorgeous.
Marianne's going to freak out.
Now, I don't know.
What can you read?
I can't see.
Her name? Okay, I'm going to read it to
Maybe
you.
I can. Let's see.
So this is a drawing of a sculpture at the Louvre.
No! Okay. I felt it. It wasn't the ending. The politics of invisibility.
Gosh.
Hold that up.
And I have the date. So I did
this.
this on the 26th of November, 2014, and it's a sculpture
Of?
Mary Magdalene. Yeah.
Do I love you?
I love you too.
Wow.
I know, wow.
And it's so funny because as I was flipping, I'm like, she is so beautiful. And as I'm sitting there, Bobby gave us the, okay, you're coming out of time signal
Yes.
there was such a feeling that there was something else that needed to be seen. Do you remember seeing that sculpture?
Very much so.
And what was your experience that made you choose to draw her?
I remember where she's located. She's very tall, and it looks like, I remember the material she is made out of is kind of, it stood out from all of the other pieces in the room. It was this painted wood, and the colors are very, very muted. It just found her, striking. I was drawn to her.
Yes, for whatever reason.
Yeah. And of all the pieces in that room, this is the one I chose to draw. And also, what was very impressive about her, actually, the drawing is reminding me, her hair is very, very, very long and red.
Yes. That was one of my big surprises when I went to see her home, actually in south of France, which we share a love.
A huge love, yeah.
Totally for, was that this wild hair is depicted like
Oh,
the
it is?
goddess, like it's very kind of, and it's always red. Power there.
I'm not that familiar with that period, the artworks of that period, or Mary Magdalene in art.
Yes.
So I didn't know she's always with long red hair.
No, she's not. The only time I've
she's
only
not
saw
only.
it was in France.
Oh, you're kidding.
I never, and that's where she lived. So my feeling is they had an eye on the part of her that was more real.
In addition, they also had their eye on her latter years
Yes.
in life.
Yes.
Right. So if her hair is very long,
Yes.
she had
Lived a long time.
right.
And you talk about the politics of visibility.
Right.
There, the way that women were depicted, and especially the way our women are depicted in religious ways, you usually don't get the more wild-haired goddess of spirituality.
And interestingly, in this sculpture, she's nude.
That's never. Wow.
She's completely nude.
Wow.
I know. So that's very vulnerable. So it brings a question: was it her choice, or
Yes.
But
Powerful.
mm-hmm.
And there it is.
Yeah, there it is.
So, Soraya, thank you so
Of course.
much for
My
showing
pleasure. My
up.
pleasure.
I loved having you here. I love your sketchbooks
Thank
and
you.
everything that they hold.
Thank you.
And to all of you out there, make a mark this week, whether it's in a book or it's in your life, and share it with one person, right? Just share it with one person and see where the conversation goes. You might just come up with that hidden treasure. That was a hidden treasure we just
I know, that was great.
That was hysterical.
We couldn't have ended it better. Yes,
Until
thank you.
next time, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great week.
We did it!
Yay! And you found a Mary Magdalene drawing. How the fuck did that happen?
Bobby, keep that in.